anyone speak Spanish here? Okay, so this session will be in Spanish. Okay, I will start the session. Anyone has attended one of my sessions in the past? Maybe in this conference or any other? Okay, perfect. Not so much, so I can still make my joke, my usual joke. Thank you for attending the best session in this conference. Congratulations. I will not ask you this question at the end of the session, by the way. So today's session is about 10 strategies for keeping your cloud cost under control. Notice that I'm not talking about minimizing your cost, but rather to keep them under control. Why? We'll see that in a moment. First question, who uses the cloud? Either Azure, AWS, or any other cloud platform? Oh, yeah, awesome, almost anyone. Great. Do you remember what was the major barrier to cloud adoption when the cloud first became a thing? You have it here, security, exactly. Almost every company was worried about security in the cloud. Is the cloud secure? Where is my data located? What happens if I don't have access to internet, or if a data center goes down? Do I lose my data? So this was the major concern and the major barrier to cloud adoption. Okay? But now that many organizations are already in the cloud, can you guess what is the most common challenge to remain in the cloud?
I think
cost.
vendor locking.
Vendor locking is one, yes, sure. But the most important, number one, is cost. Okay? We have all heard this sentence, yeah? The cloud is expensive. Who haven't heard this before? Anyone? No? Okay. Oh, yeah. You work for a company that has a lot of money. But most companies are worried about their cloud cost and cloud expenses. Okay? And the fact is, the cloud is expensive, yes, but only when it's not properly used and properly managed. Okay? Many companies see the cloud as a hosting platform rather than what it is actually. You know what is actually the cloud?
Location.
Hmm?
A location.
A location, yeah. But why do I want to use the cloud in the first place?
Platform as a service.
Sorry?
Platform as a service.
Platform as a service is one, yes, but it's a byproduct. The first reason to use the cloud is to be an innovation driver. Okay? You don't want to invest massively for infrastructure on-premise before you know if you can obtain a return on investment. Especially if you want to launch a new product or a new service, and this product or service is disruptive, you are not sure how the market will respond to that product or that service. Okay? So you are taking a risk here. You will either you invest massively for infrastructure on-premise and cross your fingers hoping that the market will respond positively to that product or service, or you use the cloud and reduce or mitigate that risk by paying for what you use, and if the market is not ready or not responding as you expect to that product or service, you can simply delete those resources and stop your expenses. Okay? So by adopting the cloud, why should we prioritize cloud cost optimization? Well, we already mentioned mitigating risk and empowering innovation, but there are other reasons. The first reason, as I mentioned earlier, it's not about reducing costs, but it's about controlling cost. And what we want is to maximize the return on investment. Okay? Because if the goal is only to reduce cost, you can either not use the cloud at all or use free resources. Okay? But Does that support your business need? Does that help you achieve the business outcome you are looking for? Certainly not. Okay? So you have to make some investment in the cloud, but what you want really is to maximize that return on investment. Okay? The second is ensuring financial predictability. The financial department or procurement department in your organization love this, predictability. They want to know, and they will put pressure on you to have an evaluation of your cloud cost that is the most precise. Okay? Well, in fact, it's not always easy to achieve this result, especially if you are launching a new product or new service and you don't have a historical background on how other services or product, similar services or product have cost in the past. Okay? Another reason is to encourage efficient resource use. Well, actually, this one relates to maximizing your return on investment. Okay? If you encourage efficient resource use, you are indirectly maximizing your return on investment because you don't have to spend that much money for what you are expecting as a return for that investment. Okay. And the final one is enhancing competitive advantage. Okay. Why? We mentioned, yes, empowering innovation, mitigating risk, sure. But also, if you invest massively in on-premise infrastructure, there are delays for purchasing, procurement, setting that infrastructure. So it takes something between weeks to months to be up and running and start taking advantage of that new infrastructure. Whereas in the cloud, you can get started in minutes. Okay? So I'm sure you are all familiar with many techniques about cost optimization, okay? Whether it is to stop unused resources or delete unused resources, to set up budget and alerts, to monitor the usage, to perform right sizing, to set up auto scaling or especially automatic scaling, and to take advantage of cloud native and serverless architecture and services. Anyone knows or use at least one of these strategies? Yeah, great. I will not be talking about these today. Okay? Why? First, because these are well-known strategies and strategies that you can find anywhere on the internet. Okay, just a Google search and you will find a lot of tutorials, articles, trainings about how to apply these techniques. What I want to share with you today is my background of more than 15 years working with company in cloud computing. Okay? And I want actually to share with you 10 strategies. Okay? And I hope you will notice that not all of these strategies are technical. Actually, many of them are not technical at all. It's not, they do not involve technical capabilities. Why? Because monitoring and controlling cost is not just a technical consideration within the organization. Actually, it's more of a human skill, an organizational strategy rather than a technical strategy. Okay. So hi, my name is Tidjani Belmansour. I'm the manager of the Azure Center of Excellence for a company called ConFoo. We are a consulting company spread around Canada, and we work with many companies around the world. What is director of the Center of Excellence for Azure? As the name suggests, I mainly focus on Azure platform, but I've worked with other cloud platforms in the past. And I am responsible for everything that covers training, certification, service offering, supporting teams when performing cloud project, doing pre-sales, and all this kind of stuff. Okay, I started working with cloud back in 2009. So I worked with many organizations, whether in government agencies, banking, entertainment, transportation, healthcare. So I've seen many use cases with many different organizations. Okay? And the first strategy I want to share with you today is to get a FinOps team. Okay. Anyone has a FinOps team in their organization? Not so much. Yeah. And that's actually what I was expecting. Many organizations adopt the cloud, but they don't change their organizational structure to support that cloud adoption. And to support cloud adoption, there are actually two things you have to change in your organization. First, you have to have a cloud center of excellence. Anyone has a cloud center of excellence in their organization? Okay, not so much too. And the second one is to have a FinOps team, so a financial operation team, okay, dedicated to cloud. So why do we need a FinOps team? It's, as we mentioned earlier, because managing the cloud and managing the cloud cost is not just a technical consideration. Many organizations make the mistake to think that it's only within the IT department, and that's the role of the IT department to support the cloud and support the cloud adoption. Whereas cloud adoption is an organizational consideration, not just a technical consideration. Okay? So the first reason, the first objective is to get a FinOps team. The second question is, who is member of that FinOps team? Many organizations think that FinOps team is a one army man. It's just one person, it's one profile, where in fact it's a team. It's composed of 3 roles. Notice here that I'm not saying 3 people, but 3 roles. Okay. The first role is the FinOps engineer. And this profile is usually a cloud architect. So it's usually a member of the IT department. And the responsibility of that profile is to identify optimization opportunities, determine the strategies for applying this optimization. And these optimizations include not only the new SKUs, but also the new services. Okay? To do that, that person is responsible to watch for the evolution of the cloud platform, looking for new services or improvement to existing services. And this person collaborates with the product team to implement those optimization strategies. It's also a common mistake many organizations make, that to think that the FinOps engineer is the one responsible to implement cost optimization strategies. It's not the case. This person works with the product team. Why? Because no one else other than the product team knows their product better. Okay? So even though we can identify optimization strategy, maybe some of these strategies are not applicable for the specific product. Okay? And if we allow that FinOps engineer to apply those strategies, we can do more harm than good to the product. Make sense? Okay. The second profile is the FinOps analyst. And usually this person is a member of the finance or procurement team, and usually a financial analyst. And that person will track expenses and invoices, making sure that everything is in order when it comes to paying the bills and checking the invoices. Sometimes it happens for organizations to just have an automatic payment of the bills without checking what happens in those bills. And if you do that, you are missing cost optimizations, and you don't exactly know what you are paying for. Okay? So you have to track your invoices and track your expenses. The other thing is to analyze consumption trends. Why? Because most of your products and services in the cloud will not have, if I may say, a stable consumption. Okay? In some period of the year, it will consume more, and in other period of the year, it will consume less. But if you track your consumption long enough, you will notice patterns. Okay? And usually, those patterns will help you identify some optimization strategies. Okay? And the last task that this person does is to design and maintain forecast models. Okay. Why? Because we want to predict future consumption and future billing. And those two profiles are managed by what we call a FinOps leader. Okay. So this is usually either a VP, a manager, or a director within the organization. And we will favor to use or to choose a person that is a member of the business department. Why? Because we use the cloud to respond to a business need, not just to use something that's technically interesting. Okay, so we have to align the cloud usage with business objectives. Okay, and also we will want to have someone who has influence within the organization. Okay. Why? Because sometimes it will be tough to justify investment. And we want to have someone who is capable to drive this and to influence the rest of the organization to justify those investments. So the main roles or the main responsibility of the FinOps leader is to promote the FinOps team within the rest of the organization, is to act as a point of contact between the FinOps team and the rest of the organization. This is very important because if you don't do this, you don't have only one communication channel between your FinOps team and the rest of the organization. Your FinOps, your FinOps engineer and or your FinOps analyst will receive different requests and sometimes requests that don't align with the organization objectives, but rather with a specific department objective. Okay? Speaking of the Cloud Center of Excellence, the Cloud Center of Excellence is the team that drives cloud adoption within the organization. And this team is usually composed of engineering and operation people, business, product owners, executives, and also finance and procurement people, okay? And for this reason, we want to have the FinOps leader to sit at this table. Why? Because we want the FinOps leader to influence cost optimization and cost controls. Okay? Because so many times we take decisions when it comes to cloud adoption, and we don't consider the cost impacts of those decisions. And after that, once we have implemented projects and so on, we ask the FinOps team, okay, do your magic now and optimize the cost for the solution. Okay. And unfortunately, many times it's not possible without having to rework the part of the solution, or in some extreme cases, the whole solution, okay, which obviously has a cost. Second strategy is to identify your resources. This seems very silly and very obvious, but not that many organizations are actually doing it. Okay? And how do we identify our resources? Is by applying tags on those resources. Okay? And as I like to say, a tagged resource is a governed resource. Okay? So if you have tags on your resources, exactly the same as for luggage in an airport. If there is no tag on this luggage, you don't know where it should be headed to. Okay? For your resources, it's the same. If you have a resource that is not tagged, you most of the time cannot know to which project or which team this resource belong. Okay? Now, the tagging strategies is up to the organization to define and decide their own tagging strategies. However, there are some tags that are commonly used. The first one is cost center. Okay. Before I go into those tags, I just want to point out that you don't need to apply all of these tags. Okay, so you can choose the one that fits best for you. But usually, cost center is always here. Why? Because it identifies to what team, department, or budget this resource should be built. Okay. The second is workload. As you know, in a cloud solution, you have many resources that compose one workload. So you have to know to what workload this specific resource is associated. You need to know who created the resource, who managed the resource, usually the product owner of the team who managed that solution. You usually need to know its confidentiality, its environment, is it development, production, QA, and so on, and its criticality. Is this resource critical? In other words, if that resource goes down, does it impact negatively my organization or not? Once you apply tags, you can filter your resources by tags. So if I want, for example, to know what resources are part of this workload or what resources are part of this environment, I can filter by this. I can do the same for the cost. How much my development environment costs currently? If I have tags, it's easy to find out. How much this specific workload for the development environment, how much does it cost? If I have tags, I can find out very easily. Okay? One thing about tags, although you can assign and apply tags manually, you will prefer to assign tags automatically. In Azure, there is that you have Azure policies that can help you automatically apply tags when a resource is created. Okay, but you have to pay special attention to provide the value for a tag. In many situations, you will notice that there are tags for the resources, but these tags have no value. And if a tag has no value, well, it has no value. Okay? It won't help you. Third strategy, code optimization. This might also seem obvious and silly, but you can greatly benefit from code optimization. Okay. Are there developers in the room? Yeah? Okay. You know we like to optimize our code, and that's great. But when we are running our application in the cloud, this has a special benefit. It allows us to reduce the skew needed to achieve the same level of service that we want to provide to our users. Okay? And especially if your application is using or leveraging the serverless mode, okay? Even though it may seem like you are saving pennies each time your application is executed, if your application is executed millions of times per month, you can save a lot of money. Okay? However, optimizing the code also has a cost, and we have to find a balance between the cost of optimizing our code and the cost the cost optimization or the cost reduction that we'll get out of it. Fourth strategy, re-architecting the whole solution. As I like to say, the cloud is a moving target. Periodically, there are new services that appear, services that are improved or changed, and rarely, but this happens, some services disappear. Okay. So it's important to monitor the evolution of the cloud platform, looking for new services, and ask ourselves, does those new services or improvement to the services that we are currently use will help us optimize our cost? And if so, sometimes it's possible through re-architecting the solution. Okay. So here again, we have to evaluate, is this beneficial to re-architect our solution comparing to the cost optimization we can get out of it? Okay. I worked with a customer a few months ago who wanted to go through a major re-architecture of all of their systems. We are talking about more than 200 systems. Okay, but the thing is, they forgot an important thing: to analyze those workloads and the end of life of these workloads. Okay? If you have a workload that is going to be decommissioned in 6 months or a year, you maybe don't want to optimize it. Okay? It doesn't worth the effort. Fifth strategy, beware of the license costs. Okay. Let me give you an example. Here, it may be small, sorry for that, but we have 3 VM SKUs. Okay? The main difference is this one has 4 CPU, this one has 8 CPUs, and this one has 16 CPUs. But for some reason, their monthly cost is exactly the same. Okay? So it might seem a no-brainer to choose the one with 16 CPU. Okay? However, if I'm going to run, for example, SQL Server, and I don't have hybrid benefits, so I don't have my own license for SQL Server, so I will pay for that license as part of my Azure cost. The license for SQL Server for 16 CPU will cost over $4,000 per month. Okay? Whereas for a virtual machine with 4 CPU, it will cost a little more than $1,000. Okay? So we have to take this into account. As Microsoft states, the cost for the license cost usually count for up to 40% of your Azure bill, which is not insignificant. Okay? Sixth strategy, leveraging dev test subscription. Anyone knows about dev test subscriptions? Yeah, perfect. I still find it surprising that so many organizations are using the cloud, but not so many organizations knows about dev test subscription. Dev test subscription, when you create a new subscription through your Azure portal, you can choose a subscription that's a dev test one, which usually helps you achieve up to 55% of cost reduction compared to a standard pay-as-you-go subscription. Okay? Out of the box, you don't have to do anything, just to select a dev test subscription. However, you have no SLA for this subscription. Microsoft doesn't guarantee any SLA. And honestly, for dev test scenarios, you don't really care about SLA. Okay? So it's an easy one. Strategy number 7, controlling costs through guardrails. I still find it surprising that many organizations have an Azure environment or a cloud environment, so to speak, but they don't set up guardrails around the usage of that environment. For example, they allow anyone to create any kind of service or any type of SKUs to use any region. So usually we want to apply policies to restrict or to constrain those type of stuff. Okay. You will want to restrict the services, the region, the SKUs that your company can use. One thing to keep in mind here, this is not a one-time operation. Okay? As your organization starts using more and more services, you can reevaluate those guardrails. Oh, okay? But you have to set up guardrails that reflect your current strategy or cloud adoption strategy each time you update it. Okay? Strategy number 8. This one, I'm sure that many of you know about it. Reserved instance, saving plan. Yeah? Anyone knows about that? Okay. Why are these very interesting and very important? Because they are both strategies that provide some level of predictability in your cloud cost. Okay? And your finance and procurement team will love that. Okay? However, there is a difference between the two. Reserved instance. When opting for reserved instance, you will typically choose one specific SKU in one specific region for one specific duration, 1 year, 3 years. Okay? When you select that, okay, and you commit to that duration, let's say 1 year, okay, you cannot change it. You're stuck with it. Even if your consumption goes beyond that, you have either to pay standard pay-as-you-go fees or to commit to another reservation. Okay? On the other hand, saving plans don't have this kind of restriction. You commit to an hourly consumption rate. So you say, for example, I commit to pay $100 each hour for 1 year or 2 years. And then you can use that amount over many services, many eligible services. Okay? So it's more flexible than reserved instance. So what happens if you go above that commitment? Okay? If you go above that hourly commitment, standard pay-as-you-go pricing will apply. Okay? However, if you go below that commitment, well, just too bad, you just lost money. You're still paying for that commitment anyway. Okay? So there are strategies to evaluate your consumption based on historical data to select the more optimal commitment for your organization. You don't want to select the exact amount based on historical data. You want to have some kind of buffers because you don't know exactly if the consumption, for example, from last year will be the same this year. So you want to have a buffer. But usually you will want to have maybe a 10 to 15% buffer. Okay? So it's not one or the other. It's a combination of the two. Okay? And as you can see here, even though a saving plan offers a smaller or a lower cost saving compared to reserved instances, they are more flexible. Okay? So you will want to use saving plan if you have varying or unpredictable workloads. And you will want to use reserved instance if you have more stable, predictable workloads. An example of that, if you have an Active Directory domain controller in virtual machine in your Azure environment, this one is a predictable and stable workload. So you will want to use reserved instance for that. Make sense? Strategy number 9, chargeback versus showback. Anyone knows chargeback? What does it mean? And showback? Yeah? Okay, perfect. Well, so in a nutshell, chargeback is simply charging at the end of the month, when the organization receives the bill, it charges the department and different teams for their consumptions. Okay, so this consumption will be charged to the budget of all of these department and teams. Okay, whereas showback, you don't charge those department and teams, but you just show them at the end of the month how much they have consumed. Okay, and usually at the beginning, companies start with chargeback, and as they mature in their cloud usage, they will slowly move toward showback. Okay, why? Showback usually create this kind of gamification and friendly competition between different teams and different departments. Say who has optimized the most this year, this month, or this quarter. Whereas chargeback is, on the long run, is not a strategy that really works. Why? Because it's not uncommon to see some departments or some teams in the organization to have bigger budget than others. Okay, and for those teams who have bigger budget, they are less impacted by the chargeback, and therefore they are less motivated to optimize their cloud cost. Okay, so many companies have found that showback is a better strategy on the long run. Okay. Strategy number 10, leveraging infrastructure as code. Okay, this one is technical, but it has it will help you reduce your cost. Raise your hand if you have resources or workloads in your organization that you don't want to delete because you are afraid not being able to recreate them exactly the way they are today. Yeah? Okay. Don't be shy. I know I've seen customers that live this situation. Okay, and the problem is many of these resources are for ephemeral environment. So, for example, a load testing environment, training environment, development environment. Okay, they will keep those resources for years. They don't use them, but just in case they will need them, they want to make sure they will be up and running, and they are afraid that if they delete them, they won't be able to recreate them exactly the same way they are today, with the exact same configuration. Okay. For those organizations, we encourage them and we help them to leverage infrastructure as code, and we show them that, look, just by running a script, you can recreate that environment exactly with the same configuration you have right now. So this improves their confidence to delete those ephemeral or unused resources, being sure that they can recreate them when needed. Okay. Still have time? 5 minutes? Okay. I wasn't sure that I will have more time than this, so I put the thank you slide here, but I still have some content for you. Okay, we'll try to go quickly over this. So this is a bonus content. It's 5 common mistakes organizations make about cloud cost optimization. The first one is to believe that cloud cost optimization is about saving money, whereas the mindset is to consider that cloud cost optimization is about maximizing the return on investment for what we are paying in the cloud. Okay? Does that make sense for you? Yeah? Okay. So, put another way, you are already paying for those resources. How you can have or get the most out of this investment. Okay. The second one, we already mentioned that, is to ask the FinOps team to do their magic at the end of the project and optimize the cost. This, believe me, this won't work. Okay? The third mistake, to consider that cost optimization is a one-time operation. We do it during the project, and once the project is over, we stop caring about how much it costs. Okay. The mindset here is to consider that cloud optimization is an ongoing and never-ending procedure, at least not until your workload is decommissioned. Okay? The first mistake, making the wrong comparison. We've seen a lot of customers moving from on-premise to the cloud, and you know it's like a candy shop. With a flip of a switch, you can enable that so many features. High availability, flip a switch. Backup, flip a switch. And usually, those customers don't have this feature on-premise. Okay? So they enable so many features in the cloud, and then they start comparing how much it costs on-premise versus how much it costs in the cloud. Okay? So here we are comparing apples with oranges. Okay? And the fifth mistake is beware of SaaS cost. Your FinOps team usually will also be responsible for SaaS licenses, okay, or optimizing the cost of your SaaS licenses. For some licenses, it will be easy to evaluate. For example, Microsoft 365, you pay for a license per user per month. Easy. Okay? You will have other licenses that are not so easy to evaluate. Let me give you an example. Last year, we evaluated a SaaS product for one of our customers for managing APIs. And that product charge you or bill, their billing model is per request. Okay. And they will apply a different rate for a GET request, for a POST request, for a DELETE request. So you have to know if you want to have an exact evaluation of how much it will cost you, you need to know exactly how many requests you will be performing per year, which is obviously not possible. Okay? And another example. Anyone uses ChatGPT or any AI thing? Yeah, okay. You know that the pricing model is usually per token, right? What is a token? In French or English language is about 3/4 of a word. Okay? So you have to find a balance between the verbosity of your chatbot, okay, and the investment you want to make. So if that chatbot is supposed to drive business for your organization, okay, you want it maybe to be more verbose with your customers, okay? Have more interesting, more meaningful, more deep conversation with your users, but it will obviously cost more, okay? So you have to find that balance. Yes, on the technical side, there are strategies like semantic caching and all of that, but you have to find out the appropriate amount of token you are willing to pay per month for this job. Make sense? So as a closing slide, the key to success in cloud cost optimization are 3 things. Mindset, once again, it's not about reducing the cost, it's about maximizing the return on investment. Skill set, both human and technical, and tool set, the tools you will use to achieve these results. Thank you very much. You have I hope you find it interesting. If you want to keep this conversation going, you have my LinkedIn here. And otherwise, I will be at the ConFoo booth, so feel free to stop by. It will be my pleasure.